All right, here we go in 3, 2, 1. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Sports Medicine Broadcast, Finding Your Athletic Trainer Paradise in Alaska, number 193. I think if you're looking on the Google Hangout Live, it says Alaskans make good athletic trainers too. So just trying to change up the name a little bit, make some, I don't know, maybe make some people smile. This week we were talking to Chris Dean. Last time when we tried to talk to him, he was stuck in an airport because, believe it or not, Alaska got snow and he was on a delayed flight, so he couldn't do the broadcast from the airplane because right about the same time we were starting, he was getting in the air. So we brought him back. We're going to be talking to Chris, where it's nice and chilly there. I think I looked it up. It's somewhere around 25 degrees in Alaska right now, and we're cold over here. We're sitting at about 52 in Houston. So I'm your host, Jeremy Jackson. Sitting right beside me, I've got
Daniela,
Joshua,
Yvette,
Tiana.
And then on Twitter, we've got Juanita, so you can tweet me at PHS SportsMed or using hashtag DSMB. You got Nick on the cameras there. Jasmine's taking pictures. We got Ariana, Jasmine, and Mariana taking notes. We also have a special guest, Steve Friend, technology specialist, being envious of everything we're doing over here. All right, so without much further ado, we are going to get right to Tiana asking questions of Mr. Dean.
So, Mr. Dean, can you please tell us briefly how and why you became an athletic trainer?
Sure. When I played sports in high school, I was always hurt, and I was very fortunate to have an athletic trainer at my high school and spent a lot of time in the athletic training room and developed an interest in the profession, and one thing led to another, and here I am today.
what's your favorite part about Alaska, Mr.?
The diversity, for sure. When Jeremy looked at the weather, he must have been looking at Anchorage. We're about 10 below today.
Oh, wow.
Which is still not bad. It's for Thanksgiving, it's not abnormal to have 50 below. This is a cold time of year for us, so we're still pretty temperate. But Alaska has rainforest. It has semi-desert climates. It has everything. It's it's just a short drive away. We're very large, but at the same time, we don't have a large population, so it's easy to find peace and solitude. It's easy to get away and enjoy the outdoors, and it's a whole other world in itself.
So there's that big of a climate swing between 25 and you said you're negative 10?
Yeah, we're 10 below here. It's not abnormal for there to be across the state to be anywhere from 50 to 60 degrees difference depending on where you are in the state.
All right, so where are you?
I'm in Fairbanks, which is pretty much dead middle of the state. Gotcha.
And is that roughly the coldest part of the state?
The interior of Alaska is. There's some small villages that are a little northwest of us that get pretty cold. Barrow gets cold. You guys may have heard of Barrow before off of the ESPN specials about Barrow football and their turf field. But it's not abnormal for Alaska to see temperatures of minus 50 or minus 60 for prolonged periods of time in the winter.
All right, so I've got to show my ignorance here. You said villages. Do the really? Have you seen igloos? Do people really have igloos?
I've never seen an igloo before. I'm sure that they probably have existed at one point in time, but I've never seen one and never really heard of one being used like that. All right.
That's yeah. We always see on TV. That's what I've always wanted to see one or get in one, but it's one of those things. Do we really use those now, or at least here in the United States? Maybe in Antarctica or something. I don't know. All right.
Mr. Dean, what is the biggest challenge you face while working in Alaska?
Well, that huge, vast, massive land that we have. It's a road trip for us for high school sports. We're going on a road trip again this Thursday, and it's about 1,000 miles each way for the road trip. So there's a lot of travel involved. I'm away from home, away from work. Kids are missing school. There's not a lot of athletic trainers in Alaska, so depending on where you go, there's There's a lot of communities in Alaska that don't have adequate health care. a lot of communities, even the larger communities, finding specialty care is sometimes a challenge. So, it's a unique opportunity, but at the same time, there's certainly challenges that come with it.
All right. So, what is your population in Alaska, and what is your athletic trainer population in Alaska?
Total population is about 750,000 people. Which, to put that in perspective, Alaska, Texas is a large state. Alaska is about 2.5 times the size of Texas. So, we have, I'm sure Houston's probably 1 million plus for population, but you take size, a city the size of Houston, put it in a state 2.5 times bigger, and that's where you're looking at for population. There's about 45 athletic trainers in Alaska right now. Of that, probably 15 or 18 are practicing full-time as athletic trainers, or not. The rest are dual credentialed individuals who work in a different field primarily.
So you said there's about 15 that are full-time athletic trainers?
Roughly 15 or 18. I'd have to sit down and do the math, but and by full-time athletic trainers, that's their primary vocation is athletic training. Other than the athletic trainers at the university level, I'm not aware of any athletic trainers who solely work full-time, like in a high school. All of us are contract employees at the schools.
Gotcha. So what did you mean by adequate health care?
Well, there's a lot of communities across the state that they don't have a doctor or a PA or a nurse practitioner. They have village health aides, which are very hardworking, talented individuals, but they have very limited skills and can't do very much. So telemedicine's practiced a lot in Alaska, across the state. The major cities have access to healthcare, but as you get into more subspecialty areas, it's just not available. It's not uncommon for folks to go to Seattle for healthcare.
Wow. Yeah, Houston, I think, actually is 6 million people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, I can only imagine Pasadena probably has, any idea? Many people. Let's see. Well, I need to look that up real quick. How many people Pasadena has? And then, Pasadena, the city of Pasadena. So you're going to look it up. But it's just very difficult to imagine being that spread out. I mean, I don't know.
The vast majority of Alaska has no roads to it. You can only get there by plane or by boat. We're headed to Juneau this weekend, which is the state capital, and you can't drive there. You have to fly or take the ferry system in. So that's they're in our conference. It's a 4-day trip to get there and get back and play games, and that's one of the challenges for sure.
So it's 4 days just to go. Do you usually schedule 2-3 games at a time, or?
Yeah, we'll play 4 games in 2 days. So it's a day down and a day back.
Wow, that's all right. So, how many high schools or how many high schools are there in Alaska that have athletic trainers? You said there's 14 to 15 full-time athletic trainers. So how many of those are strictly at the college, or how many are at the high school?
There's 6 full-time college athletic trainers. There's 3 athletic trainers in Fairbanks working in the high schools. There's 4. And then there's 4 or 5 in Anchorage that work in the high schools collectively.
All right, and so is it here? We have 2 athletic trainers at each of our high schools in Pasadena, and then one that works at the stadium. Do you have just one athletic trainer there at the high school?
Correct.
Gotcha. How big are the high schools there in, you said Anchorage and Fairbanks?
Yeah, in Fairbanks, we run the 2 big ones are right around 1,000 apiece. The next one down is about 800 kids, and then there's another smaller one, it's about 250 kids that all have athletic trainers in some varying role. And then Anchorage, they've got schools anywhere from 2,000 kids to probably 1,000 or so.
Okay, so we are actually the smallest school in our district, and we have, I think, 2,100 kids. So Dobie, which is still in our district, and they're a 20-minute drive maybe, is somewhere around 3,500, 4,000 kids. So I mean, obviously, just a completely different situation. It'd be really interesting to come out there and see that, experience that for some short amount of time. So on that being said, I actually went to Target this morning and bought some long johns or thermal underwears, because I'm going to go camping this weekend, and it might be in the 30s or 40s. So tell us some of the things that you might do to stay warm.
Well, at 30 or 40 degrees, we're still wearing shorts and t-shirts. But wearing layers is crucial. To give you an idea of the differences in how perception of cold is, in Fairbanks, they don't stop the kids going out for recess, the elementary school kids, until it's minus 20.
Oh my goodness.
So they don't cancel school because of cold. At 40 below, school becomes optional, but very few kids don't come to school because it's cold. But layers is, it's lots and lots of layers.
That's all? You don't have any, what about how that Columbia has those little, what are they called? Heat discs or whatever they're, the jackets, any specific?
Yeah, I wear a Cabela's down jacket. The kids, even at 40 below, the kids are still wearing flip-flops and, just hoodies they run from the bus to the school and run back from the school to the bus, and they don't really dress warmly. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I don't understand. But I guess when you grow up, I mean, if you guys came down here and it's 100 degrees, you might literally melt. So, where are we on our questions? Let them ask a couple more questions. I'm going to have to leave soon. So,
It's my turn.
Okay.
Mr. Dean, what is the most unique aspect of working in Alaska?
Well, the state is just incredible. It's a whole different world. It's unlike anything else. We have the opportunity, as I said earlier, one of the drawbacks is the incredible amount of travel. But the flip side of that is you get to see a lot of Alaska, get to see a lot of unique things, animals and northern lights, and just nature in itself. So, that's definitely one of the benefits. As we're in the grand scheme of things, we're a very small state as far as athletic training goes. So we have a great tight knit group that works well together and is very supportive of each other, and that's definitely a bonus as well.
Yeah, because we have Greater Houston Athletic Trainer Society, and we have I think somewhere around 170 athletic trainers just in the Greater Houston area, and there is definitely some rivalry and tension and dislike between all of us. So I can only imagine how that would work if you got 25 of you or 45 of you, and you say was it 25? I mean,
statewide is about 45 or
okay.
so.
Yeah, that's what I thought. If you guys weren't working together and on the same page, you could really do some damage for athletic training there. So, all right. So, what is your favorite part? I know you said the Northern Lights, the wildlife, being a close knit group. So I think you might have said earlier, what's your favorite part?
Yeah, I just enjoy. For me personally, I just enjoy seeing the maturation process of the kids. Watching kids come in as freshmen and really finding themselves and becoming adults by the time they're seniors, and hopefully moving on to bigger and better things. Of course, doesn't hurt that add a day to a road trip and go fishing, or go whale watching, or there's all kinds of opportunities that are great opportunities.
Sounds good.
What are you doing to improve athletic training in your state?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. We last July we finally got licensure in Alaska for athletic trainers, which was a big step. We're constantly trying to bring in quality speakers to our annual meeting, providing educational opportunities to our athletic trainers. as athletic trainers, we're working hard in outreach to educate athletes and parents and community members, especially with things like concussions and heat illness and cardiac death, things that all adversely affect athletes. We're trying to make things better and hopefully improve athletics across the board for everybody.
All right, so talk to me briefly about heat illness in Alaska.
Sure, it sounds crazy. I'll be the first to say that, but in Fairbanks, we routinely get into the high 90s and even occasionally break 100 degrees in the summertime. The interior of Alaska has the most diverse climate in the world for temperatures. We go from 60 below in the winter to high 90s in the summer.
Oh wow!
Pretty wide ranging changes. So we stay pretty dry, so we don't have as many problems with heat and humidity and as Houston would, obviously. But the big problem we have is huge temperature swings. Last year for right around regional and state track, we had days where it was 30 degrees and the kids were out running and practicing, and then 2 days later we were at 80 degrees. So there's not an acclimation time for them to get ready to get out there and work hard in the heat, and so it's still a problem. It's still something we have to work on with kids, educate them, make sure they're doing things the right way, they're staying hydrated. They're the coaches realize that even though it's 80 degrees, it's still hot compared to what we were 2 days prior.
Do that.
All right, where were we? Oh, I'm sorry, I got distracted. The kids are getting ready to take off. Yeah, see, we have the acclimation period to where they're required to go 4 days in August without pads, because it stays at 90 degrees or 90 plus degrees. And so I can't imagine having our kids just be out there running track in 30 degrees and then the next day be running it in 80, 90 degrees. See, when I looked up the temperatures in Alaska, I guess I was just looking at Anchorage because that's what Google pulled up. And I said, what's the average temperature? And it was saying like 80s was the summer temperature. But man, if you're getting up to 90 and 100 and then getting down to 60, that, again, just eye-opening. So
yeah, we have big swings in Fairbanks. Anchorage is much more, they're on the coast, and so we're on the water. They're much more temperate than we are.
all right, give me 1 second. Let me see. All right, so one of the things that I'm really interested in is you guys have the 60 plus days of darkness. Does that affect you too?
Yeah, we, right now we have about 3 hours of daylight a day, so it'll come up. The sun breaks the horizon and kind of does a short arc over the horizon and goes back down. And Barrow, they'll go for about 40, 45 days with never seeing the sun. It never rises.
All right. So with something like that, with only just a few hours or no sun at all, what are some of the things that you or the athletic trainers may do to stave off depression or burnout? Just
sure. And that's a big problem for everybody in Alaska, the darkness and the cold, and it can be miserable. So vitamin D certainly is crucial to supplement. Trying to get out and stay active is important. The people that really seem to struggle are the ones that don't get out. They don't stay active. They get homebound, kind of go stir crazy, and just are generally miserable for the 6+ months of winter.
So just finding ways to stay active. I mean, are people really active outdoors during the winter times when the sun is so minimal? Or
yeah, it's that people don't let the darkness slow them down.
All right. Well, that's good to hear. So is there? All right. I guess, like you said, just keeping active. And does the vitamin B really help?
Yeah, the D3 does help.
Yeah. All right. So then what's on the opposite? So I look forward to every year our football is in the fall. And then right about the last 2 weeks, we have our time change. So it gets dark earlier. So practice ends, has to end earlier because it gets dark outside, and then it's dangerous to play outside in the dark. So with the summertime where you have basically 20 hours or whatever of sunlight, does that affect you guys at all?
Yeah, some people have difficulty sleeping. I've never had a problem with it. The one thing that I've noticed in the summer is you get, the sun's always up, so you lose track of time, and it's easy to get going on a project and still be going at midnight or 1 a.m. and not really feel like it's 1 a.m. So, it's almost a blessing at times where you can get a lot of stuff done and kind of fool your body that it shouldn't be tired. And that people make the most of the summers too. It's always something going on. We have a baseball game in the summer that they don't start until 10 o'clock at night. It's called the Midnight Sun baseball game, and it's played completely without lights. So that gives you an idea how much sunlight there is throughout the evening and into the early morning hours. They're able to play baseball. Our football is a little different than your football. Our football starts last week of July and it ends the first week of October. So, but we're losing about 7 or 8 minutes a day the last couple of weeks of football of sunlight. So it goes pretty quick for us.
Gotcha. All right. So what are some of the other things in Alaska that you guys are doing differently than we may be doing here in the mainland?
Yeah, I'm not sure there's that much difference. We try to adhere to best practices and make sure we're doing things the best we can for our athletes, and we work really hard to educate the athletes and the coaches and the parents and the community on the best way to do things and take care of the kids. And I would hope that we do things pretty similarly. Outside of we just don't have a lot of boots on the ground, and we kind of have to circle the wagons and provide a lot of health care for schools that don't have access to an athletic trainer or other provider.
All right, so I work in the high school, so I have a student athletic trainer program. I talked about GHATS, our workshop that's coming up in January. We'll have 1,100 plus student athletic trainer or athletic training student aides, whatever the word is now, on that one Saturday, and that's not even. I don't know. I would say that's probably maybe 3/4 of the ones that are in the Houston area. What is the high school student aide, student helper scene look like for you in Alaska?
There's really not one. We don't have athletic trainers employed in the school teaching during the day, so that is a barrier at times to something like that. We've explored it in the past, and it just, for one reason or another, has never really taken off. And so yeah, there's just not much of a student aid scene in Alaska.
Gotcha. When I was emailing with Mary, she was saying something about y'all have the Great Alaskan Shootout, and that's open for like high school student aides to come like participate or view or shadow the college athletic trainer. Can you speak more about that?
Yeah, I don't know the specifics of that program. I think that there are a couple schools across the state that are STEM type schools where they have introduction to health careers and the CNA and EMT type programs. And I think those are the students that are coming to that to watch. But I don't believe there's a dedicated student aid program that's involved with that. I think it's more of a, an introduction to health careers type. Come watch what the athletic trainer does at the basketball tournament and how they take care of the kids, and see if it's the right fit for you.
All right. So talk more about how the athletic training education program there in Alaska, since if you don't have the high school, maybe in the college, and then how do they, there's a lot of people from Houston that work in Houston. So I imagine that there's a lot of people that work there in Alaska are from Alaska. So can you talk more about the education there in Alaska?
Sure. Up until the mid 90s, the University of Alaska at Fairbanks had a internship based student athletic trainer program. And that's actually where I went through and got my education and proceeded on to certification. That when they went to when the NATA and BOC went to the curriculum only program, that program went away. So right now in Alaska, and for the last 20 years or so, there has not been a athletic training program available for students at the college level. The University of Alaska Anchorage offers a minor in athletic training, but it's kind of a introduction preparatory type minor. It's not something that would get you where you could sit for the exam. The University of Alaska Fairbanks in the last few years has hosted a senior year athletic training student who's come in and done their practicum with the athletic trainers here at UAF and kind of got the experience of Alaska life, and served almost in a graduate assistant role. It's probably not the best way to describe it, but they come up and finish their last year of college here and get that experience. But there's very few and far between opportunities for athletic training education in Alaska.
All right. So then what's drawing people to work there in Alaska?
Well, it's a unique opportunity. There's a lot of people that want to come and experience Alaska, and they come for the dream of Alaska, what Alaska is to them. It's the outdoors, it's camping, hiking, hunting, fishing, and so that's the attraction that pulls them up for a job. There are not a lot of jobs in Alaska, obviously. We're working to increase the opportunities for athletic trainers, but it's a slow process.
So then how much turnover is there? I mean, do people get there, test it out, and leave after a year, or do they tend to settle in and stay there for a while?
Yeah, it really depends on the person. There's the folks in Fairbanks. We've had one turnover. Well, actually, in the last 5 years, there's been two out of the 4 positions have turned over. Anchorage, they're expanding, so there hasn't been much turnover. They've actually added some folks to the roles for working in high schools. The college folks, I don't believe they're turning over at all. They're still staying the same. The head athletic trainers at the 2 universities have been there forever. So it's one of those things where Alaska's either right or wrong for you, and the job's not what's going to make the state. The state's going to make the job for you. So people either love it or they don't.
All right. So what if someone wants to, is there a way to test it out, like any summer programs or any, Christmas break programs? I know we briefly talked about the Great Alaskan Shootout. Is there some sort of internship that I could just say, hey, I want to go try working in Alaska for a week or 2 over my Christmas break?
Yeah, there's not a lot of opportunity like that. The summer baseball league occasionally has some opportunities to do internship type experience, but there's, the universities are pretty well defined with their athletic training staff. Not that they wouldn't appreciate any extra help, but somebody coming in for a week or two is not gonna help them out a lot. The schools are pretty well defined for what they've got right now. The short-term opportunities are not there. We just don't have enough opportunities in Alaska to do that. They're outside of the Great Alaska Shootout and Summer Baseball League. UAF's got a couple basketball tournaments, small basketball tournaments. There's just not a lot of opportunities.
All right. So what do you hope to see in the next, let's say, 5 years for athletic training in Alaska?
Yeah, my greatest hope is that we were able to get an athletic trainer in every high school. I really think that's crucial, and if we can't do anything else, that would be success across the board. Just seeing adequate health care for the athletes in all the high schools. So
if there's a athletic trainer in a high school that doesn't even have, say, like an ortho or something, it doesn't even have a PA in their community, then can you talk a little bit more about how that works?
Sure. Well, those communities are very small. A couple hundred people or smaller. They're out in the middle of what's called Bush, Alaska, or very rural Alaska. So it would be a long time before the trickle down to get athletic trainers out there. But the folks out there, they rely on telemedicine. They have relationships with the Native Health Service where they can communicate with the doctors over Skype or similar technology and provide the best care that they can do.
All right.
But, I would just be happy to see, all the high schools in the major cities start out with athletic trainers and making sure there was good coverage for all the kids.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that, I talked about. There's so many athletic trainers, but there's also 4, 5, 6A, meaning, somewhere between 1,500 and 1,500 plus students that don't have an athletic trainer, yet they have football or they have some sort of contact sports. Now, there's people like Memorial Hermann or Methodist that are kind of stepping in to fill that role. Those are two of the big hospital systems here in Houston, but they don't, there's still some of those schools that don't have anybody at all. So yeah, I don't understand how you have football here in Houston without an athletic trainer. I mean, I can understand if you got 100 people in your community and you don't even have a doctor there, that you don't have an athletic trainer, but
yeah, the reality of it is in Alaska, if we didn't have the benefactors that we do, we wouldn't have athletic trainers in the schools. The schools, they put very little money into the athletic trainers, into the athletic training program. And it unfortunately, it's not a priority. And what's going to have to happen, I think, before it becomes a priority is to have a catastrophic event that redefines healthcare in Alaska. And at the high school or at the, even at the middle school level, there's risk everywhere. And I hate to say that, and I hate to, think bad things, but we are very complacent. We've been very fortunate that we haven't had a really bad event happen, and it's just a matter of time, unfortunately. And hopefully it doesn't happen. Hopefully we get through and everything's great. But like I said, I would be very happy if we could get an athlete trainer in all the major high schools.
All right. So in Alaska, do you have to be registered as well as licensed? Because in Texas, you can be either licensed, even if you are nationally certified, you have to be state licensed. And again, that's because Texas, the licensure predated the BOC exam, the certification. and so we just haven't let go of that. But when I was talking to Sam Lee from Hawaii, you just had to register. If you were certified, you just had to register in the state of Hawaii as an athletic trainer. Is that the case there in Alaska?
No, you have to be BOC certified and also have to be licensed through the state of Alaska. And our licensure is pretty simple. If you're BOC certified, you're in good standing, then you get a license. It's not complicated.
So yeah, like here in Texas, you would have to take a separate test, or at least it used to be. You would have to take a separate licensure test, even if you're BOC certified. Like last week when we talked to Theron from the Houston Dynamo professional soccer team, he was saying he came from Colorado and he was nationally certified, but then he got to Texas and they're like, yeah, you got to go get your state license. And he's like, what are you talking about? So here he is, like a 30-something-year-old taking a test with kids fresh out of college, being like, I don't know what's going on. So just curious about the situation or the regulation there in Alaska. So
yeah, we just got licensure. It took effect July of 2015.
All right. So what other interesting things about Alaska? What about any sports that we might not see or have down here in Texas?
Sure. Obviously probably the first one is ice hockey. It's not very common in Texas, but it's growing for sure. Let's see. We have the high schools compete in traditional Native games. They have Alaska Native sports. So games like the ear pull, where they hook a loop of twine around their ears, and so you can pull the hardest and pull it off the other guy's ear. The stick pull, one leg hop, two jump. I mean, it's incredible some of the athletic prowess these kids have that you would never know what they did other than watching them compete in these Alaska Native games. We have football and basketball, wrestling, cross country running and skiing. It's a lot of the same crossover sports as you guys do. It's just on a different level. Our seasons are pretty compact because of the climate. Football is 8 weeks of games straight. There's no bye weeks. It's once we start, and then we finish. Often with track and baseball and softball, there's still snow through mid-March on the track or the fields, and they're running indoors or they're throwing in the gym. So they're in an abbreviated season as well. The only sports that really get away with not having to worry about climate is basketball and wrestling and hockey.
Yeah, there used to be a semi-pro or I don't know what they call them, the Houston Arrows here, but then they left. I don't know if it just wasn't popular enough, but yeah, hockey is not something that's huge in Texas. Dallas has a professional team, but again, it's not really something you see in the schools. So I'm very interested in seeing the native games. Where can I find out more about these native games that you're talking about? Ear pull.
Yeah, it's I'm trying to think. There's a big like Olympics every year. It's the World Eskimo Indian Olympics. WEIO.org. WEOI. Say
it again. WE.
Yeah. Whiskey Echo India Oscar.org.
Whiskey Echo India Oscar.org. Okay. All right. So I'll look that up in a little bit, but I'm sorry. I don't normally speak in what is that called? No military abbreviations. So it took me a minute there. So I'll have to check that out. That's really interesting, and hopefully they have videos of some of the competitors there. So
they do. It's phenomenal. Just some of the stuff they do with these guys, and gals, men and women both. They're just phenomenal athletes.
All right. So is this an event you cover? Like, do they have the big Olympic week and all these finalists are there and you guys cover that, or is it just something that is extracurricular or outside of school?
Yeah, the WEIO is kind of their own organization. The school has their own separate native games program where they compete throughout the year, and then they have a kind of a final event. And then WEIO is a statewide event that brings folks across the state into one central place to compete.
All right, so then go ahead.
Yeah, at the school level, it's not considered a contracted or covered sport. We still see the kids occasionally. They'll come in, they play other sports. They play football or basketball or wrestle, and so they're familiar with the athletic trainer, and they get hurt and come in to ask for help. But we don't routinely cover those events.
Gotcha. Have you been to one of those events?
Oh yeah, it's crazy. It's fun.
Sounds like fun. Again, I'm definitely have to check that out. Maybe that'd be a draw. If I was going to try and bring a group of my students up there in a couple years, if we want to fundraise, what's going to be the best way for us to sample athletic training in Alaska? What's going to be like the time of year? What's going to be the event? I mean, obviously this sounds like it's completely unique, the WEIO, but what's our best way to look at athletic training in Alaska from for high school students?
Yeah, it all depends on what you want to experience. If you come up you can catch WEO, you can catch what else is going on that time? Things like the Iditarod, which is a big sled dog race. Athletic trainers aren't very common there, but we have done some research. Dr. McKeag has done a lot of research on the Iditarod. There's high school sports going on year round. The WEO is in the middle of the summer, so you get the experience of the Midnight Sun, Summer Baseball League. If you come in the wintertime, you get the experience of the cold, you get the experience of the dark and seeing the northern lights, hockey, basketball. It all depends on what you want to see and do. It's visiting Anchorage, visiting Fairbanks. If you come up in the fall, you can go to Barrow and catch a football game, which Barrow, if you haven't seen the ESPN specials, they're the northernmost football program in the nation. Interesting fact, they've got a blue turf field that makes it pretty unique, but they actually have to have armed guards for the polar bears when they have events going on, because they're right on the coast of the ocean there with the polar bears all around.
Huh. Yeah, I saw an advertisement. I don't have cable, so we don't have ESPN at the house. But yeah, I saw the deal, but I didn't. That's armed guard for polar bears. We have to worry about squirrels running on the field or birds, but not polar bears. So that's definitely awesome. And I'm definitely going to look into in a couple years, seeing if I can bring a group of kids out there. I'm not sure if I'm brave enough to try -40, -60 degrees, but I guess if I was going to do it, I might as well do it all, huh?
Yeah, it's when it's cold like that. After about 20 below, it's just cold. Your body's just it's cold outside, but you can take a cup of coffee and throw it in the air, and it freezes before it hits the ground.
Yeah.
You can take a banana at 40 below and use it to hammer nails into wood. One of the favorite pastimes is to go out to Chena Hot Springs, which has an outdoor swimming pool. And so the pool is naturally heated to about 105 degrees from the underground spring. But you're at 20 below or even colder, your hair freezes, your eyebrows freeze. So your hair's just frozen solid while you're sitting in this warm water and you're completely comfortable. It's such a unique experience. But yeah, let's make it happen. Let's you get a group of kids, you bring them up, and we'll show you a good time. My colleagues in Anchorage and the Matsu Valley, and then us in Fairbanks, we'll make it a good time for you.
That sounds like it would be awesome. So, on that note, if somebody else wants to do this, somebody wants to get a hold of you, what's going to be the best way to do that?
Probably email is the best way, and I've got a pretty long email, but contact. We have a website for the Alaska Athletic Trainers Association. I'm actually the president of the Alaska Athletic Trainers Association as well, and so contacting through that, or I'm on the Secondary Schools Athletic Trainer Committee for NATA, so it's pretty easy to find me on that web page as well with my email, or I can give out my cell phone number if somebody wants to text me or call me. That's fine. We're all about promoting Alaska and supporting athletic trainers across the nation.
All right. So, what is the website for the Alaska Athletic Trainers Association?
Yeah, that would. I gotta look it up. I'm sorry.
I think it's a website, ATA. Yeah,
it's AATAwebsite.com.
Okay, that was close. All right, so then, that right there has a link to your email.
Yes, it should.
All right, so you can definitely hit up Chris if you want to. If you're interested in going out to Alaska, it sounds very hospitable. As far as the people, I don't know about the weather. Maybe people from up north, Chicago, New England, something like that, it's not so bad. But people down here in the South, it'd be a huge eye-awakening experience. So,
yeah, it's something you got to experience. So it's a whole nother world coming up, and just experiencing it. It's a once in a lifetime experience for most people. It's something we get to live every day. But I encourage, when people ask me when to come up to Alaska, when to see Alaska, I tell them, you got to come up in the summer and the winter, because it's two completely different environments. Get the best of both worlds.
Sounds good. So here I use School Health for supplies, and they partner with the Sports Medicine Broadcast to offer listeners a gift card each month, so you can enter to win there by going to sportshealth.com/SMB and entering the code. This month is actually, the code word is Sarah, my beautiful wife. So she's probably listening, and I'm sure we're going to discuss how we can get to Alaska. But one thing I asked Sam was, shipping to Hawaii has got to be expensive. So are all the supplies there? You mentioned not having really good financial support for athletic training. So what about the budgets there? Is it very difficult to buy supplies or maintain supplies there in Alaska?
No, it's we have a great relationship with a different wholesaler, and they ship to us for free.
Yeah.
UPS 2-day or FedEx 2-day air. So they take good care of us, and if we don't have free shipping, it quickly becomes cost prohibitive, as you can imagine, to ship stuff, especially supplies athletic trainers use to Alaska. But we're very fortunate that one of the wholesalers takes good care of us.
Who is that?
Henry Schein.
Henry Schein. Gotcha. So yeah, I've used them before in the past, and so very cool. I think that maybe who ships to Sam there in Alaska too. I can't remember who he said for sure, but so it's not much of a, like what you see in the catalog is more or less what you guys pay because they ship for free.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, very cool. So just curious, here inside of Houston, it's a big city. Teacher pay is somewhere around $47,000, and then my stipend is somewhere around $10,000. What does it look like there for somebody in Alaska?
Sure. So none of the athletic there's one athletic trainer who is employed by a school. She is employed part-time by the school district, part-time by the university, and that's completely funded through benefactor donations. The schools don't pay for athletic. They all offer, in Fairbanks at least, I can't speak to the Anchorage schools, but in Fairbanks, the Anchorage schools, let me back up, sorry. The Anchorage schools are also contracted through a private practice orthopedic clinic out of Anchorage. In Fairbanks, the schools contract through 2 businesses. One's an orthopedic surgeon's practice, who I work for. The other is a physical therapy clinic. The school district pays $5,000 a year for the athletic trainer via contract. And then the benefactor pays the rest of it.
So does that athletic trainer have to go out and get donations, get support, or does the contracting office do that?
Well, so the contract, like with my clinic, my employer pays all the cost. So the school district pays him $5,000 a year, which he in turn donates back to pretty much donates it back to the school, and then donates my salary, my time, all my coverage and everything.
Gotcha. Okay. I understand now. So, and obviously, you know, cost of living is completely different. Well, maybe completely different than Houston to Alaska. I don't know, but just curious. So, all right. It's bringing us towards the end. Chris, you got any parting words of advice, wisdom, caution?
Well, I thank you for the opportunity. I love to talk about Alaska and love to advocate for athletic trainers. And, I appreciate this opportunity. I sincerely hope that you're able to bring a group of kids up, or even if you're only able to bring your wife up, let's make it a great trip for you guys, make some memories. And that offer extends out to anybody else that wants to come to Alaska. We're here to make it a good time for everybody and show off our great state. And I just appreciate the time today.
Yeah, for sure. I am really interested in bringing a group of kids up. And like I said, flying from Houston to Hawaii, Houston to Alaska would be expensive. So it'd take us a couple years to be able to save up. But those years worth of saving up, you couldn't replace them for the memories that those kids would have. Because we took them camping last year here in 3 hours from Houston, and the memories that they have and just how much they talked about that small trip was amazing. So if I could pull something off to where I could take them to Alaska or Hawaii or something huge like that, then that would be phenomenal. So thanks for the open invitation. And again, once I get something rolling, I'll contact you more about some more specifics. So Chris Dean from the Alaska Athletic Trainers Association, president of the Alaskan Athletic Trainers Association, which is Alaskan AATA website.com. And then that has his contact information if you want to check him out there. Again, I had mentioned sportshealth.com/SMB. And I messed it up earlier. November password was Sarah, which was yesterday. December code is Foo Bag, which is a really cool bag that keeps your kit or your gear dry. And then January password is GHATS, the Greater Houston Athletic Trainer Society. They're the ones that sponsor the CEUs. So if you want to check out our website, sportsmedicinebroadcast.com, you can watch live almost every Wednesday. Chris is going to be on a plane tomorrow, as he talked about. It's a day trip to anywhere they're playing. And then so he couldn't join us tomorrow. So we bumped up the schedule for him. So again, almost every single Wednesday, join the conversation by following all the links there on sportsmedicinebroadcast.com. Most likely to find me on Twitter, or as Chris said, he was in the Secondary Schools Athletic Training Committee on Facebook. I pretty much check that group every day because I like to see what the people that are in my same situation are doing. So check that out there. If you're not in that group and you're working as secondary school athletic trainers, then find Secondary School Athletic Trainer Committee in the Facebook group and then request to join. It's really good information, really good way to build and understand. I see a lot of people in there asking questions about, hey, this is my situation. What do you guys think? Did I do it right? Or, here was this injury. You got any thoughts or feedback? Or here, anybody know a way to tape or splint or do this? And so it's a really cool way for us to connect, using Facebook, but it's inside of that group. So it's a little bit closed off to open. And it also gives some people a chance to rant or air some dirty laundry or just get things out their chest. So check it out if you're working in the secondary setting. So for Jeremy Jackson, host of the Sports Medicine Broadcast, the Sports Medicine One kids here, and Chris Dean there in Alaska, that's a wrap.